Today we are in the first of our series on Esther. And today is a good bit of history and kind of background, getting us caught up to speed. We plopped down into the second and third chapters of Esther today, because trying to read chapter 1 through 3 in worship, I think most of us would end up taking a nap, and that's not really the goal. But we do hope that you'll read those in advance before you come. If you didn't today, that's okay. You can go home, and I hope you will read chapter 1 through 3. For next week, I hope you read chapter 4. But there are a couple things that happen in chapter 1 through 3 that are important and relevant to the story that we didn't fit in. And I also want to mention, before I get into that, if you want an outstanding summary of the book of Esther in a fun and inventive way, there is an awesome VeggieTales episode about Esther. And I don't know if you've seen VeggieTales or not, but it's fantastic. And episode 14 is all about the story of Esther. I think you can find it on YouTube. That might be illegal, so don't quote me on that. But go check that out. So, there are a couple of things that happen in the first 3 chapters of Esther to make you aware of. One is the story of this woman who just gets a very bare mention in our reading today, which is Vashti. We could do a whole series just on Vashti, and it would be worthwhile. That's not this series, so we're not really going to talk much about it, except to say that I hope you will go back and read about Vashti. It is the story of a woman who is queen, whose husband tries to force her to denigrate herself, and she says no, and she gets ditched for it. But her courage and strength in refusing to give in is a wonderful thing to know about and to celebrate, and she is a hero. So there's that. Go check that out. There's another important thing that happens in these first 3 chapters that I want you to file away. And that is the story of Mordecai. And what happens with Mordecai is, Mordecai is a Jew. Esther is also a Jew. The king doesn't know that Esther is a Jew. So when he appoints her queen, he just sort of isn't aware of that part. We're going to come to a whole bunch of moments in this where the king just sort of isn't aware of things. Doesn't seem to be the sharpest guy. Or he just kind of does whatever the last person tells him to do. We're not really sure. But Mordecai and Esther have a relationship where, Esther was an orphan and Mordecai adopted her. So Mordecai is her dad. All right? And as her dad, he uncovers a plot to assassinate the king. That's very, very important. What happens is he turns these people in. The plot is stopped, right? The people are executed. And what Mordecai does gets written down in the annals of the king, it's called, right? It's like the record of what happened. But the king doesn't know that it's Mordecai that does it. Mordecai is just sort of not important enough for the king to know. He's almost there, but not quite. So it just gets written down that this guy did it, and it gets shuffled away, and the king doesn't know it. So there's a couple things there, again, just as a reminder that the king doesn't know, that I want you to file away for later. One of those is there's no Esther's a Jew. And then he doesn't know that Mordecai is the one who stops this plot. All right? So that's important. The reason Mordecai stops the plot really sets the stage for the whole story, the whole book of Esther. And Esther is the last of the history books in the Old Testament. There's a whole bunch of history books that tell the story of the people of Israel from the time of the Exodus up through really this. This is one of the most recent stories that we have in the Old Testament. It takes place 400s, late 400s, 450, 470, 480, we're not exactly sure. Because for us, the difference between 480 and 450 BC is really not that big of a deal, right? Just sort of anywhere in there is fine. 450, 480, somewhere in that BC range. About 100 years before that, okay, the people of Israel, their nation, had been conquered by the Babylonians. All right? That was not so good for them. They were conquered, the city of Jerusalem was destroyed and demolished. The people were carted off into slavery in Babylon. And worst of all for them, the temple was destroyed. This is something that the Jewish people have been mourning ever since. All right? The Wailing Wall in Jerusalem is the only visible part of the former first temple that still exists. There's other parts that are buried under where the current temple now is. This is the only part of the original temple that exists, and it is called the Wailing Wall. That's what the Wailing Wall is. It's the only remaining part of the first temple. And they still go there today to mourn it. And when I was there, and I put my hand on it, you could feel 2,500 years of grief. It's a big deal. All right? So they were carted off into slavery, into Babylon. Well, slavery didn't really work then like it does now, or like it did in the American South. You'd be a slave for a while, but then you could get released, or you could buy your freedom, or you could have a job, and so life was not as bad as we think of as slavery. And then Babylonians got conquered by the Persians, this sort of thing, what goes around comes around back in those days, right? And so it became Persia, which is what it is in our story. And the king of Persia said to these Jewish people, you know what? If you want to, you can go back. You can go back to Jerusalem. You can go back. You can live there. You can rebuild it if you want. It's all good. Well, in that time, right, the Jewish people they had some freedom. They had some opportunity. They had jobs. They had homes. They had families. They had roofs. Some of them did go back, right? Some of them did go back and they started rebuilding the temple. They started rebuilding the city walls. And some of them would go back and do that. Then they'd come back to Babylon for a little while. And some people would go from Babylon back there. And there was money flowing. And it was a collaborative thing. But a lot of people stayed. They just decided to stay in Persia. Which, I hear about it, and I'm like, well, they got carted off into slavery. That's not so good. Their homeland is Israel. Think they'd want to go back, right? Well, think about what your ancestors were doing and where they were 100 years ago, right? A lot of you were born and raised in Michigan, but I'm guessing that many of your ancestors 100 years ago were elsewhere. Mine were in New York City. They were in upstate New York. They were in Quebec. So if you said to me now, hey, guess what? You can go back to one of those places. I'd be like, no, I'm good. I'm good. I like it here. I like Michigan. Family's happy. Kids are happy. I'm happy. I don't want to go. Right? And that's me, and I've only been here 2 years. Right? Most of you, I'm imagining, would not go. You were born in Michigan. You're going to die in Michigan. That's what it is in Michigan, right? So, you wouldn't go. They don't go either. A lot of them decide to stick around. And that means that Persia, this place, is a place that they chose. And that's rare back in the day. Right? I mean, we can choose where we live. You can go live in London if you want to. We can go live in Canada if you want. You can kind of go live anywhere. Most places will take Americans. We can kind of go where we want. You couldn't do that back then. You were kind of born in a place, and that's where you lived. And if it got conquered, and it was Babylon, and became Persian, and you were Persian, if it got conquered by somebody else, you were just kind of stuck. But they chose to be there. It was a home for them. And so when Mordecai, this Jewish guy, uncovers this plot against the king, well, that's a plot against his king and against his country. And he's loyal. He's a loyal God, right? He's faithful. He's dependable. And so he turns them in. He turns them in. And the reason that he is so faithful and loyal and dependable is the reason that Jews have been getting in trouble for a long, long time, which is that they are a faithful, dependable people, right? In particular, the reason that Mordecai gets in trouble in this story is that very same reason, right? Now, finally, here we are, an hour and a half into the sermon, and we've finally gotten to the story for today. which is this guy Mordecai, who gets in trouble with this guy Haman. And it's the same reason that he turned in his assassin, right? So you read this, right? And here Esther is queen. All right, that's great. And she is the daughter of Mordecai. And this guy Haman becomes the second in command. That's what it means when it says he's put above all the other nobles. It means he's the second in command to the king, right? He's second in charge. And all these other people, we read, are kneeling and bowing. And Mordecai doesn't kneel and bow. It's kind of like, well, that's weird. You read the Old Testament, you read plenty of other places where Jewish people kneel and bow before kings, they kneel and bow before their own king. Like, what's the deal? Well, it actually doesn't really mean kneel and bow, right? It's actually a little bit of a mistranslation. What's really going on is that the other people are worshiping Haman. And Mordecai won't do that. Right? Now this sounds like an odd practice to us. Why would you worship the second in command of the king? Or why would you worship the king? But it was very common back then. Right? King Xerxes was worshipped. People made offerings to King Xerxes. Right? They would go to the temples and they would pray to King Xerxes. This was a normal thing for kings and rulers and all kinds of people. 500 years later, right, the Romans would say to the Jews, you can worship your God. That's cool. Go ahead. That's fine. But you also need to make offerings to Caesar. You need to worship Caesar too. This was a common thing that happened back then. But not for the Jews. The Jews would not do it. When the Romans said to the Jews, you have to worship Caesar too, the Jews were like, no, we're not doing that. And when Haman, the Agagite, says to Mordecai, you need to worship me, Mordecai's like, no, I'm not doing that. You know the first commandment? I am the Lord your God. You shall have no other gods before me. Yeah, the Jews take that one pretty seriously. All right? Very, very seriously indeed. To the point where they won't worship another god at all. It's not going to happen. It hasn't happened in their history. They've been around like 3,000 years. It hasn't happened before. It wasn't going to happen then. It ain't going to happen now. They're not going to do it. All right? To the point where they will suffer and die for it. All right? That is what it means to be Jewish. And that is what Haman is enraged about. That's what we read. He is enraged, right? Because he thinks, I deserve it. Right? He's not the king. He's second in command, right? That's pretty good. Surely that deserves some worship. A little bit of bowing, a little bit of offerings, some kind of worship, right? He rates that as much, right? No, not for Mordecai. And then you add on another little thing that to us means nothing, but if you were Jewish at the time means everything, which is that Haman was an Agagite. And Agagites didn't like Jews. So what Haman figures is, okay, all right, Mordecai's not going to do this. You know what? It's not just Mordecai. We just need to get rid of all of them. All of them. All of the Jews need to be killed. When I was in Israel, it really felt like the whole country was terrified that somebody was going to just invade them or wipe them out or something. And y'all, they come by that honestly. Okay? The Holocaust that we know of wasn't the first try. Okay? This one was 2,500 years ago. Back then, people were trying to wipe out the Jews. It's a thing. And that's what Haman does. He said, we're just going to kill them all. It's horrendous, right? And he goes to the king, and the king's like, yeah, okay. Really? Yeah, okay, go ahead and draw up the paperwork. It's incredible to think about. But that's what the king says. And the reason for it, right? Our Holocaust that we know of, the Holocaust of the 1930s and 40s that took place in Europe with the Jews, was ethnic, right? There were other ethnic groups that were actually part of that. It was ethnic, it was racial, it was genetic, it was about their physical, not being human. Right? That was the view. That was why it was done. This one is because of their religion. It's because of their faithfulness and their commitment to God and their love and their passion for God and the seriousness with which they take their connection to God. It is wholly and fundamentally about that, which is very interesting because Esther is unique among books of the Bible in that God is never explicitly mentioned. You don't read the word God anywhere in the book of Esther. But God is at the core and the center of the reason that this drama takes place to start with. And God is also at the core and the center of how they get out of it. Right? God is at work, but never explicitly mentioned. And to find out about that, about what God does, what God has to say, and what Esther and Mordecai do, to find out about that, you're going to have to come back next week.